A dad and his daughter were out in the forest when a rock nearly hit them out of nowhere. There was no one nearby. Seconds later, his camera caught something he still can't explain. Let's dive into 13 encounters that made people believe in Bigfoot. Sometimes the people searching for Bigfoot aren't the ones who find it. Sometimes it finds them first. That's what happened on a cold winter morning in 2014 when Sean Sullivan took his 8-year-old son, Brendan, on a routine hike through a national forest in Arkansas. It was a trail they'd walked many times before, making what happened next even harder to explain. About 20 minutes into the hike, Brendan stopped to play on a patch of ice while Sean took in the quiet around them. Then everything changed. From somewhere deeper in the woods came the sound of heavy breathing, followed almost immediately by a deep, guttural growl unlike anything Sean had ever heard before.
Ray, shh. Listen carefully. It's the sound of heavy breathing. And then...
What is it?
A menacing, deep growl.
As he scanned the tree line, he noticed movement. Partially hidden behind the brush was a dark figure standing among the trees. Sean immediately called Brendan over, told him to stay behind him, and kept filming as the figure remained just out of clear view.
Wait, shh. What is it? Shh. What is it? Hey, get over here. Get over here, Rafe. What is it?
Then it let out another loud snort. Sean didn't wait to find out what it was. He grabbed Brendan, and the two hurried back down the trail as fast as they could.
Are you kidding me? All right, let's go, Rafe, go.
But whatever they'd encountered didn't seem ready to let them leave. As they retreated through the forest, Sean could still hear heavy movement and rustling behind them. Every few moments, it sounded as though something was following them through the trees, keeping pace just out of sight. Finally, he stopped and looked back. For just a brief moment, the same dark figure emerged from behind a tree before slipping back into the forest. Sean immediately turned around and ran, refusing to risk another encounter with whatever had been watching them. Later, investigators who reviewed the footage pointed out several details they found difficult to dismiss. The figure appeared upright and bipedal, peeking from behind the tree in a way that didn't resemble a deer or any other known animal. Combined with the deep vocalizations captured during the encounter, some researchers suggested it could be one of the strongest alleged Bigfoot videos ever recorded.
The noise that we're hearing in this clip is kind of interesting to me, but what they capture on camera looks very humanoid in nature, and it's very hard to see because he's just behind the brush, but you do capture a glimpse of what looks like.
Sean still can't explain what happened that morning. He insists it wasn't a bear or any animal he'd encountered before. The way it moved, the sounds it made, and the way it seemed to follow them convinced him there was intelligence behind its actions. Whether the creature was actually hunting them or simply trying to drive two unexpected visitors out of its territory remains unknown. What do you think Sean and Brendan really came face to face with in those woods? Ever wondered what happens when the sound you use to call out a predator actually gets you an answer back? It happened during a Bigfoot investigation in a remote stretch of the Pacific Northwest. A team of researchers had been tracking heavy Bigfoot activity around a mountain they had named Gray Mountain. And on this particular night, researcher Dr. Maria Mayer decided to go out alone.
I want to head over that way and put out some calls and see what happens.
Most researchers avoid going out alone in predator territory, but Maria had a plan. Using a powerful speaker, she played back a rare Bigfoot vocalization, hoping something nearby would respond. Her theory was if something territorial was nearby, it would respond to an intruder in its space. It was her third attempt when something answered.
Hear that? Oh my God.
A deep, guttural call came from the tree line, and it wasn't an echo. It sounded almost identical to the recording she'd just played, even though she wasn't the one making the noise. She marked the location and headed back the next day to check the trail cameras she'd placed nearby, hoping one of them had caught whatever had called back. Reviewing the trail camera footage, one photo caught her attention. A large, dark, upright silhouette stood in the frame.
There's one shot at night, and there's some sort of figure in it.
That same night, in a nearby part of the hot zone, survivalist Russell E. Cord picked up something on his thermal camera. In the middle of a clearing, a heat signature appeared and went away almost as fast as it showed up. Seconds later, a deer bolted from the same spot, clearly afraid of something Russell and his team couldn't see with the naked eye.
That looks like a Bigfoot. Insane. Gone. Look.
That's a deer.
That's a deer, but look how he's acting. Oh, the deer got spooked.
It's leaving.
If the deer had been running from it, then whatever Russell saw hadn't gone far. It was still somewhere beyond the edge of the light, and if it was still out there, Maria's encounter suddenly didn't seem so isolated anymore. Do you think Russell's thermal camera picked up the same creature that answered her call? Nobody knows the answer to that one, but a trail camera in western New York may have caught something just as strange, standing in plain sight and gone the very next frame. The photos come from a researcher who runs Rytac Hunt Systems, pulled from a Spy Point trail camera on his property. He's upfront that he doesn't chase hoaxes or manufactured evidence, but this particular set of images stopped him in his tracks the moment he reviewed them. The first photo, taken at 10:14 in the morning on August 26, 2016, with the temperature sitting around 68 degrees, shows a dense stretch of forest between two large trees. Off in the corner, a squirrel sits on the ground, unbothered. But tucked between the trunks is a dark shape that doesn't belong to either tree, black against a backdrop of brown bark, positioned low enough and close enough that zooming in reveals what looks like a defined brow ridge, an eye socket, and the edge of a cheekbone, peeking out as if caught mid-step.
See if you can see what I see. Alright, you had long enough. So what we're looking at is right here. You guys see that? That black? Well, people are going to say, oh my god, that's, you never know, that's, I don't know what that is, and so on and so forth. But as you can look, the trees are brown. This is clearly black, of a black nature, right here on the game cam. So what we're going to do is try to zoom that in. Oh my lord, take a look at that. You see the conical head? You see the eye and the brow ridge and the bone structure with the nose and the cheek? It's almost like it's peeking out behind the trees as it's going to move that way. Here, the body runs down behind these trees. You're only seeing a portion of it. It's definitely peeking. If I zoom way in, it's distorted. But you can obviously see what that is.
Then, in the very next photo taken from the same camera, it's gone. And there's no tree standing in that exact spot that could account for it. He pulls up both images side by side. The same two trees, the same patch of forest, one frame with a clear shape wedged between them, the next completely empty.
And then if you go one more, no, that space, there's the big tree, guys, and here's the other tree, so it's right there. And it's gone. That whole subject, the whole thing that it looked like, there's not even a tree right there that could have looked like it. So a lot of people say, oh, it'll be a stump, or this or that. Well, there's no tree there, guys. There's not even a tree there that could look like it at all. So let's take you back. I'll leave the cursor right there. 1, there it is. 2, 3. You can. I'm gonna rock it. You can see the head move. Watch. Watch the head. I don't know what you guys want to say that is, but I'm almost certain I know what that is. Now, when I showed you in the picture earlier, there was no tree there, looking like that. So that you can't say that that's a tree or a stump that's there, because I've got after footage that shows that it's not. So let's go to where we see it. Now, see? Right there. There's your big tree. There's your other tree. There's no tree there leaning that direction. like sticking out.
That gap between photos is what convinced him this wasn't a trick of shadow or bark texture. If the shape had simply been a stump or an odd growth, it would still be sitting there in the second image. It isn't. Whatever occupied that space between the two trees had moved on by the time the camera triggered again. Would 2 consecutive frames like that be enough to change your mind? Footprints can disappear. Whatever made them doesn't always stick around. But this time, the team wasn't following tracks. They were following something that was moving in real time. Deep in mountain terrain thick enough to swallow a flashlight beam whole, researchers Russell and Maria were working 2 ends of the same hot zone, miles apart but connected by radio. Back at base, Bryce was watching a live surveillance feed, a system the team built specifically to flag bipedal heat signatures moving through terrain the human eye simply can't process fast enough. It was meant to be the edge they've never had before. Russell was the first to get a hit. A shape rises up from behind a tree, roughly 200 yards to his southwest. He asked Bryce if it's Mireya, already knowing the answer before it came back. Mireya was nowhere near that position, and Bryce confirmed it immediately over the radio.
Hang on, up the hill a little bit.
What the is that?
We got a target here. Came up from behind a tree.
That is not Mireya, is it?
That is not Maria.
What the? Holy.
Hey, Maria, the AI has acquired a target coming up to you.
It's really close. I'd say about 200 yards to the southwest, and it looks big.
Whatever the array just locked onto was moving entirely on its own. Russell started closing the distance anyway. As he moved, the ground beneath him felt wrong. Soil pushed up and packed down in a way that didn't match any game trail he's used before, more like something had walked this exact path over and over until it wore the earth down. He kept going, then the signal shifted. It was no longer sitting still 200 yards out. It was coming toward him now, tracking east, gaining ground with every update Bryce called out over the radio. 100 yards, 50. Bryce kept talking him forward.
Hey, Russ, we see a target making its way towards you, and it is moving, man.
Are we looking downhill, uphill, or in front of me in the direction I'm moving? Guide me.
It is to your east, probably about 50 yards, and moving in.
Got it.
Keep me advised. Over.
Copy that.
Something's been through here just recently.
That's when the smell hit Russell first, sharp and strong enough to stop him mid-step. A second later, the unmistakable snap of a branch breaking cut through the silence, somewhere directly ahead of him, less than 100 yards out now. He didn't turn back. He kept moving toward it, guided the whole way by Bryce's voice in his ear, closing the gap on something neither of them could actually see yet.
Can you smell that? That's pretty strong. Stop. Did you hear that? Something broke a branch out here in front of us. Russ for Bryce.
Russell, I got you loud and clear, man.
Something just broke a stick out in front of me.
Less than 100 yards. How close am I?
If you stay that course, you should be able to intercept.
Higher up the mountain, Mireya was working a second signal entirely, unaware of how close whatever Russell is tracking has gotten to him. She was descending through steep, uncooperative terrain toward her own heat source when Bryce's voice cut through both radios at once, and this time there was urgency in it. The array wasn't reading one target anymore. It was reading 2 separate signatures, moving independently, somewhere in the fog stretched between Russell and Mireya's positions.
It's like an obstacle course, isn't it? Hey, Bryce, I'm trying to run down towards where you saw that heat signature.
Gotcha, Maria.
I got a target right here.
Oh yeah, we definitely got a target.
Holy. Hey, Mireya, we're picking up 2 targets, not just one. Are you hearing or seeing anything?
I'm not seeing anything.
We're losing that other signature between the trees in the fog.
But if you just keep moving, you should be able to connect with it.
Mireya could barely see past the tree line in front of her. The rain had already turned to hail, and the hail was starting to turn to snow, each shift in weather rolling another layer of fog through the mountainside. Every step forward now came with the very real risk of losing whatever they were tracking completely, and the storm showed no sign of giving them a break. She kept moving toward the last known position anyway, trusting a system she could no longer confirm with her own eyes, because stopping now meant losing both signals for good.
Hey, Maria, we just lost that signal.
Bryce, I didn't see the but I'm not pumped.
Not coming in.
Oh, it just gets hairier. Oh.
Maria, do you copy?
Then the array lost the signal entirely. Mara, do you copy? And Maria couldn't answer. If a tracking system built specifically to see through rain, snow, and fog still lost two separate targets at once in the same stretch of mountain at nearly the same moment, what do you think made sure Russell and Maria couldn't find either of them again? Not every warning comes from something you can see. Sometimes, your dog notices it first. The same happened to a woman who returned from a routine walk with her dogs, only to realize later that she had missed something in the footage. She'd been out walking in what she calls one of her secret spots, a location she's kept private, when she noticed both dogs locked onto something in the distance, refusing to look away. This clip, uploaded to the Channel D's Dark Adventures on November 6, 2024, shows her scanning the same direction over and over and seeing nothing unusual, just trees and brush. At the time, she chalked it up to a scent or a squirrel and kept moving. It wasn't until she reviewed the video afterward that she spotted this. According to her, the same spot had been occupied by a group of hunters only shortly before she and her dogs arrived. Once they left the area, the figure appeared to still be there, seemingly with nowhere else to go, watching first the hunters and then her. On the recording, you can hear her stop mid-walk, unsettled by a sound she can't place. A stick snapping, something rustling, nothing she can immediately explain. She calls out, half joking and half serious, asking if there are more hunters nearby, hoping for a normal answer.
Maybe there's more. Are there more hunters out here? Please let yourself be known. I don't want to look like an idiot.
No one responds. Her dog stops dead in her tracks moments later, refusing to move forward, still staring at the same spot in the trees. When she finally goes back through the footage frame by frame, the shape is unmistakable, small in stature compared to what most people picture when they think of Bigfoot, but clearly moving, peeking out from behind the tree in a way no stationary object would. She's convinced whatever it was hadn't moved on. It couldn't. Sandwiched between where the hunters had been sitting and where she and her dogs walked in, it likely had nowhere left to retreat to without being seen. So instead, it stayed exactly where it was and watched both groups pass through. Her dogs saw it before she did. The only question is, how long it had been watching her before either of them noticed. A trail camera at a known Sasquatch research site in Alberta had picked up something strange messing with the equipment. The camera getting jostled and moved, scratching sounds picked up on audio, something breathing or making low noise just out of frame. He posted the footage and asked viewers a simple question. What did they think it was? The guesses came flooding in. Some said squirrel. A lot of people said raccoon. A few, of course, said Bigfoot.
Many of you were saying it was a squirrel. I received lots of theories that it was a bear or a raccoon. Raccoon was a big one as well. And then there's also people who said that, oh, this is probably a Bigfoot.
Rather than leave it there, the researcher went back out to the same spot, set up a fresh trail camera, and left food out as bait, apples and bananas hung nearby to draw whatever it was back in. Then, he left the camera running for over 2 months. When he finally recovered it, the footage answered the question almost immediately.
So as you can see in the video, after we left, something almost immediately starts messing around with the camera, and it's basically identical to the old video. The camera's being moved around, you can hear something scratching at it. It almost sounds like you can hear it making noise, like almost breathing or, I don't know, some kind of strange noise.
Within moments of the team leaving the site, something started messing with the camera again, jostling it, scratching at it. The same kind of low breathing sound picked up from the first video. Whatever it was, the researcher believes it probably never left the area, coming back to that same camera every so often over those 2 months whenever something drew it in again. 2 videos, 2 months apart, and the same shape caught on camera both times. What do you think was standing in front of that lens? Sometimes you don't realize what happened until you review the footage. Other times, you know immediately that something isn't right. What does it take to make a grown man radio his own wife and tell her to call the police over a hog pen? It all began on a farm just outside Martinsburg, in West Virginia's eastern panhandle, an area locals call Spruce Pine Hollow. Brad Arvin, who's lived in the region for over 56 years, still remembers the day his grandfather sent him into the barn to grab hay for the cattle while he went to feed the pigs alone.
He wasn't gone 3 minutes. I see him back up, turn around, and come over and get in a truck. Where are we going, Pat? We got to go home. What's wrong? We got to go home. I thought he was sick. And then we get home, and then he looks at my grandmother and says, "You need to call the police."
Brad assumed his grandfather was sick, but the reality was much worse. His grandfather had found the hog pen covered in blood. Every animal had deep claw marks down its sides and severe injuries, but strangely, none of the meat had been touched. Instead, only the internal organs were missing.
And I finally look over in the hog pen, and there's all of our hogs. And just a bloody mess. Everything's just like something had grabbed them and raked down their sides. And then, as you turned them over to look, their bellies were kind of like ripped open, and hearts, livers, kidneys gone.
When the sheriff's department and the DNR arrived, they blamed it on a bobcat.
Nothing to worry about, sorry for the loss, but, it's just a bobcat.
Brad never accepted that answer. Years later, he discovered that several reported Bigfoot encounters describe the same pattern, with only the organs taken because they are believed to provide more nutrition than muscle. Whether that's true or not, it matched exactly what his grandfather had seen. That wasn't Brad's only encounter with something in those woods. Years earlier, hunting with his grandfather and uncle, he remembers a sudden, overwhelming sense of dread settling over him while rocks and acorns were thrown from somewhere close by, close enough to hear. Every time he looked up, there was nothing there.
Acorns would be thrown, but then when you pop your head up over the log to look, there's nothing there. You just felt like, oh my God, this is the end, And it was weird. It felt crazy.
But one hunting trip would leave an even bigger mystery behind. Brad and 4 other hunters had spread out around an old limestone quarry near Martinsburg, waiting for deer to be driven toward their positions. Then, something came over the top of the hill.
Down the side of this hill, and it's kind of like paralleling us, and it's the same color as a white-tailed deer. It's tan.
Running on all 4s, tan-colored, it looked exactly like a white-tailed deer. 4 experienced hunters fired at it. Missing wasn't something they were known for, yet whatever they were aiming at never slowed down. It kept running straight toward the hunter waiting below, who had the clearest shot of them all, but that shot never came.
And I'm waiting to hear shots. There's nothing. And by then, the guy that was with me, his 2 sons were already within, seeing distance, and I was like, "Hey man, do you see anything? Blood trail, whatever, I don't see anything." And they were like, "Oh, that shooting, you had to have got something, And I was like, that's what I thought. So they started scouring that end of the gravel dump. I come up from the side, the other guy come up from the back side, and one of the other guys come up from the front. We found nothing.
When the drive was over, the men searched the area on their hands and knees. There was no blood, no hair, no tracks, and nothing had passed the hunters waiting below. Somehow, whatever they'd all watched run down that hill had simply disappeared. And Brad wasn't the only person with a story like that. Not far away, Christine Shattuck moved onto a property bordering the Sleepy Creek Mountain Wildlife Management Area. Less than 2 weeks later, while scanning a hillside with binoculars, she noticed what looked like a fallen log. But then she noticed something.
I saw it move, and I went, oh my God. And this was not in a spot where a person would be standing. There was a tree, and there was all this greenbrier. There was still a lot of foliage because it was the first week of November. And I saw it move, and I thought it was a person at first. I mean, Indian, like the dark skin. And then I looked again, and I was like, this thing's covered with hair all over its body.
Standing nearly 6.5 feet tall and covered in hair, the figure was upright in vegetation so thick a person could barely stand there. Christine quietly left the area. But when she stopped at the parking lot and looked back through her binoculars just minutes later, it was standing in the exact spot where she'd been. Those stories eventually caught the attention of nearby researchers. Joel and Elizabeth, who run a paranormal investigation channel, set up a gifting site near a rocky outcrop, leaving small offerings like stones and seashells to see if anything would interact with them. Over several visits, the items began disappearing. On one trip, Joel returned to find that a carefully stacked pile of 10 rocks had been reduced to just 3, while a moss-covered stone had somehow been moved lower down the stack in a way that didn't look natural.
Of that stack, and now there's like 3. It's still a stack though, and there's a larger rock that has moss on it. I can see in my photos, I can identify it and tell that it's kind of shifted down.
One story can be dismissed, even 2, but in the same stretch of forest, Brad's family, Christine, and local researchers all walked away with experiences they still can't explain. What do you think was really hiding in those woods? If Brad's hunting party couldn't find a single track after 4 direct hits, dogs a few hundred miles north in Ohio picked up on something that never even got close enough to be shot at. The footage was sent to researcher Sean Gilligan through a friend of a friend. It had been recorded near Bainbridge, Ohio just weeks earlier. It reached the team at Rocky Mountain Sasquatch Organization. There's no audio on the original recording, but the dogs in frame don't need sound to make their reaction obvious. They're pacing, barking, clearly unsettled by something moving just outside the light.
On video, the dogs do not appreciate it being around. They appear to be upset and barking up a storm.
On thermal, the shape reads unmistakably upright and bipedal, nothing about its gait matching a deer or a bear crossing the yard. RMSO stabilized the footage and enlarged it by 150% to get a clearer read on the figure's movement, and while they worked through the frame by frame, they paired it with something else that had come in from the same general area only months earlier. On April 5th, Sean had sent over 2 separate audio recordings captured near Bainbridge by a friend on the ground, one taken in the early evening, the other well after dark. Both picked up long, low vocalizations, the kind that don't immediately match anything local. There were coyotes mixed into the background, which isn't unusual since a vocalization can draw other wildlife into the response, but underneath that, something else answers back, something that doesn't carry a coyote's pitch or pattern. The team boosted the recording by 40 decibels to bring both episodes out clearly, and the calls stayed consistent with each other, low, drawn out, and repeated in a rhythm that felt deliberate. 2 states away, in Arizona's Mogollon Rim, a well-documented hotspot for what locals have long called the Mogollon Monster, researcher Michael Velarde picked up something similar on the morning of June 14th, recording from just outside his camp at roughly 7,000 feet of elevation. Deep in Ponderosa Pine Forest, the team had already investigated on prior expeditions. Same kind of drawn-out vocalization, echoing across a wide-open canyon, answered from a different direction entirely. But it's what came after the recordings that made the team stop and take a second look. Out in the same Arizona terrain, the team found a set of prints pressed into soft ground beside what was clearly an elk track for comparison.
Whatever it was walking on its tiptoes. And from the last toe to the end of this toe is only 6 inches.
6 inches spread at the toes?
Yeah.
The elk print was unmistakable. Next to it sat something else entirely. A print showing a clear toe spread of roughly 6 inches from the smallest toe to the largest, with a heel line that was harder to place, shallow and indistinct compared to a full flat-footed step. Looking closer, the team realized why. Whatever made it hadn't planted its full foot at all. It looked like it had been walking on its toes, the way a person shifts their weight forward onto the balls of their feet instead of coming down flat-heeled. A print that size, walking that way, next to a fresh elk track for scale, left the team with more questions than the footage alone ever could. Two states, two sets of unexplained vocalizations that answer each other almost like a call and response, a thermal figure that sent a yard full of dogs into a panic, and a footprint that doesn't move like anything walking on 4 legs or flat feet. Taken apart, each piece has an explanation. Taken together, it's harder to look away from. Do you think a person or a bear could ever produce a track that looks like that? Sometimes the person you least expect at a gas station hands you a story that changes the whole trip. That's exactly what happened to the Voyager Overland team last winter. A stranger at a gas station recognized him from a video he'd posted the fall before, one that had people guessing Bigfoot, trespassers, even military. Turns out the stranger knew the area himself. Over a coffee, he sketched out a map to something even stranger, deeper in.
So I'm filling up at the gas station last winter, and this guy comes up to me and he says, "You're Voyager Overland, aren't you?" And he tells me, "Hey, I saw your video last fall, and I recognized where you were. And I read the comments as well," he says. People are saying it's Bigfoot or Sasquatch or somebody looking to steal your stuff, or the military with special suits and whatever. Well, he tells me that him and his dad used to hunt in that area, and he knows exactly where we were, and he saw exactly what we saw. And he says, "If you want, I'll give you directions if you want to go see something even more spooky." So I bought him a coffee, and he drew me a map, gave me some general directions, and that's where Gina and I are going this weekend. We're going to hopefully verify what we saw and see the rest that he's talking about. It got my attention when he told me that him and his dad, they don't hunt there. They've never been back again. And he kind of cautioned me. He said, if you get there at the right time, you're going to see what you saw in your video, what you captured on camera, and you're probably going to see a lot more.
The trip didn't go smoothly from the start. The usual road to the trailhead was blocked by a gate neither of them had ever seen closed before, forcing a 2-hour detour in the dark, crossing 2 rivers and following a cut line around a lake just to reach the same starting point. By the time they made camp for the night, it was already pitch black, and the wind picked up out of nowhere despite no sign of it on the way up.
Well, this is home for tonight, and I was hoping for a campfire tonight, but oh, is it windy. And actually, I didn't notice the wind until we just got to the top here. Kind of strange, actually.
That night, sitting around camp, the full story came out. According to the man at the gas station, decades earlier, sometime around the 1950s or 60s, a trapper had been living out in that same backcountry with his wife joining him for the summer. One day, he went out to work and never came back. She waited a day, then 2, before hiking out to town to get his brother's help. They searched for weeks and found nothing. The man's theory, what the team had caught on camera the year before, wasn't Bigfoot at all. It was the trapper's brother, still searching those woods for him.
What this gentleman is telling me is that what we saw, what we caught on video that night, is actually the trapper's brother that is still looking for him to this day. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you, that seems a little far-fetched to me, but we don't know what we caught, so I really don't know. So the plan tomorrow is to follow the directions that he gave us and go see if we can find that cabin.
So they set up a trail camera for the night and went to bed. But the very next day, when they pulled the SD card, something had recorded 6 separate clips, but almost none of it was watchable. One video was badly glitched. The rest were too bright, washed out, unreadable on a small screen.
Just to make sure we don't have any problems, we used a brand new SD card. So it's time to look and see why there's 6 videos on here from last night.
Ooh, that's hard to see, eh?
It is. Hang on here.
Can we actually open it to look at?
It's a clear picture. You can see me setting it up. But I don't really see anything except for this one that's really glitchy. So I'm really not sure what's going on here. So I don't know what we're looking at. The one video is kind of glitchy. Otherwise, it's so hard to see, right? It's so bright on the screen. So I think we're going to have to wait till we get back home and I got a computer screen, a large computer screen to work with, see if we can make anything out. But it still puzzles me that I recorded a whole bunch of video and there seems to be nothing on there.
They packed it away to check later on a real monitor and pushed on toward the cabin. The directions weren't easy to follow. A creek that wasn't mentioned. A fork in the trail that didn't match what they'd been told. More than once they nearly turned back, convinced they'd taken a wrong route entirely. Then, just past a muddy low point in the valley, they found it. It was the outline of a large cabin, long collapsed, with a stone chimney still standing above the ruins.
Oh, hold on, here it is. Oh, that is so cool. Well, that took some effort to find, but oh wow, this is so cool. You can tell the outline of what used to be a cabin, and check out this standing chimney. Wow. This is so cool. Check out what's left of it.
They were roughly 10 to 12 kilometers from the nearest road, deep enough in that they hadn't seen another person since the day before. At night, they set the camera again and went to sleep in a light drizzle, both admitting afterward they slept better than expected, undisturbed through the whole night. Instead, they noticed smoke curling up from the old stone chimney. The cabin had been a burned-out ruin for possibly 100 years. There was nothing inside it to burn, no fireplace intact, no fuel source, nothing. And yet, smoke was rising from it, thick enough to smell wood burning in the air around them.
It's the fireplace.
What? What the frick? What the was that?
Where's that smoke coming from? What the?
It's coming from inside. There's nothing in here.
There's nothing in here.
Then came the sound, something loud, moving nearby, bigger and heavier than anything a moose could produce. The kind of sound that doesn't match anything either of them had heard in years outdoors. They didn't wait around to find out what it was. They packed up and left immediately, abandoning the footage they just recorded without ever reviewing it on site.
I heard something. Did you hear that?
Freaking sounded like a moose or some of that, but
It was loud.
like bigger and not like a moose.
It even smells like wood smoke. But where the hell is it coming from? What? Did you hear that?
Yeah.
The frick was that? Hey! Hello?
I'm out of here. I don't like this.
No, it's time to pack up and get the out of here. Did I leave that? I did leave that.
Whatever the gas station stranger knew, and whatever he chose not to say, it clearly wasn't something either of them wanted to test twice. What do you think was really burning in that chimney that morning? Her dogs noticed something she couldn't. This next team had the opposite problem. Their camera could see it, but their own eyes couldn't. That's the exact situation investigators Ronnie LeBlanc and Dr. Mireya Mayor found themselves in while staking out a suspected feeding ground deep in the Olympic Peninsula. Footage that later aired as part of the Expedition Bigfoot series. Working from opposite sides of a river, Mireya was the first to catch it. A massive glowing red heat signature on her thermal camera, standing upright behind a tree directly across from her. At first, she assumed it was hiding, staying still enough that it could pass for part of the landscape. Then, it moved. Those were full, deliberate movements, enough that Ronnie insisted she keep the camera locked on it while he tried something. He made a call into the dark and waited. The figure reacted. Small white dots began appearing above the heat signature, sometimes 3, sometimes 5, blinking in and out like they had a rhythm of their own. Then, in real time, the heat signature itself started shrinking. The lower half faded first, growing fainter until it disappeared completely.
Maria, come in for Ronnie.
Seriously, what is that?
Maria's not responding.
It looks like a body. It's right across the river from me.
What do you think it is?
It looks like a large red heat signature hiding behind a tree. This is honestly the strangest thing I've ever seen.
So it's hiding behind the tree. This is getting stranger by the minute.
Leaving nothing but a small white circle hovering where a massive figure had been standing seconds earlier. Then, that vanished too. Mireia swept her flashlight across the exact spot. Nothing was there. A beam of light should have caught something if a solid figure had actually been standing at that riverbank. The team's camera had also glitched throughout the encounter, refusing to record despite functioning normally minutes before and after.
Maria, please tell me that you're recording that figure.
What's happening now? Ronnie, the thermal's glitching and it won't record. The camera is not recording. Wait, it stopped glitching, but the camera's still not recording. We'll have to get it off the cameraman's video.
I want to try something. Just keep it on the target. I'm going to do a call in 30 seconds.
I've got it in my sights.
Something the crew has come to associate with Bigfoot's alleged ability to interfere with electronics during close encounters. And then the team pulled up the previous night's footage to review it frame by frame with fresh eyes. The heat signature was unmistakably there on screen, hot, defined, and roughly the size and shape of something crouched or standing at full height.
Are you saying they were separate white dots, like floating above it or on the heat signature itself?
No, like above it.
Yeah, I mean, we got to look at that.
Yeah, no.
Orbs go hand in hand with Bigfoot, and some Native Americans believe that they can actually transform into these orbs and go in between worlds. Whatever Maria was seeing above this figure, it sounds a lot like orbs, and if it's anything like last year, then we're definitely into some strange territory.
But the moment Mireia's flashlight passed over the same spot in the recording, the visible area showed nothing. The team ruled out known wildlife almost immediately. Nothing native to that forest produces a heat signature that size, and nothing explains why it would disappear entirely from view while remaining fully visible on thermal only seconds earlier. If a heat signature that large can stand across a river, react to a call, and vanish completely under direct light, what do you think Mireia and Ronnie actually caught on camera that night? If Russell's sighting proves anything, it's that thermal cameras don't always tell the whole story. Sometimes the only proof you get is something you didn't even notice until you looked back. That's exactly what happened to one man on Vancouver Island, British Columbia, roughly 3 weeks before he uploaded his video to the cabin in the woods. The man, his wife Adita, and their 7-year-old daughter flew into Sydney Airport before driving about 90 minutes south to Shirley. Their cottage backed onto dense forest, with an even larger one across Highway 14. According to Google Maps, it stretched for miles. On day 2, their host, wearing a Bigfoot t-shirt, mentioned the forest across the highway had a reputation for strange, unexplained activity. He wouldn't say more, but he did mention losing goats over the years, some to confirmed predators, blood and torn fencing left behind. One goat, though, simply vanished, without any proper explanation.
The third time that the guy mentioned where a goat had simply disappeared. Like he had come to the paddock in the morning to feed the animals, the chickens and the goats, and there was just one less goat. There was no damage to the fence, though, that time. There was no sign of an animal trying to push over the fence. The 5-foot fence was perfectly intact.
The comment stuck with him, but the trip carried on normally for over a week. Then, 4 days before they were due to fly home, they returned to Muir Creek Beach, a remote stretch of cobblestone shoreline near the cottage. While his wife waited in the shallows, the man and his daughter climbed onto a massive driftwood log. That's when a rock struck the wood hard enough to echo, landing exactly opposite where his daughter stood. Without the log, it would have hit her.
We're just playing innocently when all of a sudden I hear the echoing crack of a stone hitting this log that we are in. And I knew instantly that the stone had been thrown. It hadn't, just fallen from somewhere. Not that there was really anywhere it could have fallen from, but it had hit this log hard enough that I knew from the sound it had been thrown.
He ruled out his wife immediately. She'd had her back turned the entire time, and there was no one else on the beach in either direction. The only place a person could have been hiding was a steep 30 to 40 foot rock cliff behind them, one so thick with vegetation that visibility dropped to about 5 feet. It didn't take long before he started thinking about stories he'd read about Bigfoot throwing rocks.
One of the hallmarks of Sasquatch sightings is that before people see the creature or hear the creature vocalize, the creature will throw rocks at them. They'll be walking through the forest, say on a hunting trip or something in a remote area like we were, and a pebble will land at their feet, and they'll look around and there's no one to have thrown it, and they can't see where it came from other than it seems to have come from a long way away and to have been thrown with a lot of power.
That night, he crossed the highway alone with only his phone flashlight, remembering the host's warning to keep your wits about you in that forest. About 100 yards in, he heard something.
And it sounded, best I can describe it, like a large, heavy-set, barrel-chested man clearing his throat.
First, it was a low, guttural sound, something between a man clearing his throat and a warning growl. Then, 20 to 30 seconds later, a second sound. A large tree twisting and cracking, the kind of noise you'd expect on a windy day. Except there was no wind at all that night. He returned the next afternoon in daylight. Around 120 yards in, near where he estimated the sounds had come from, he found a single deep impression pressed into the forest floor, roughly 50% larger than his own shoe, and lacking any distinct toe marks.
I don't know if this is a footprint or just some naturally occurring depression here, but it's deep, whatever it is, and it's fresh.
A few yards further, he found a healthy balsam fir, still green, completely uprooted with no rot, no insect damage, and no wind damage to any surrounding trees. That's when something catches his eye, just past the fallen tree, 60 or 70 yards out. There was a dark shape, low to the ground, wide enough that it didn't look like anything natural. His first thought is that it's a root ball, torn loose when the tree came down. That's the only explanation that made sense.
Because what I saw was a large black shape that I would estimate to be 8 to 9 feet tall. I'm a pretty good judge of heights and lengths and things from all the years.
He raised his phone and filmed it anyway, several seconds of dark, motionless mass sitting in the brush before he left. And then he came back the next day to check on it, and that's when the unease really set in. The shape was gone. Instead, a few feet away was a second tree, a birch, even bigger than the first, its trunk snapped clean in half. He searched the ground around it for a stump, for roots, for any sign of how a tree that size could fall on its own.
Here's that fallen balsam, and I've gotten close enough now to see there is a root ball, so maybe it fell down naturally, but the wood seems sound. And you can see this balsam still has lots of green.
There wasn't even a stump nearby. As far as he could tell, that tree had been moved there. It wasn't until he was back home, scrolling through the footage with his family, that his wife leaned in and pointed at the screen. Right at the base of the shape, there was movement. Small, but unmistakable. Something swinging gently, like it's attached to whatever that mass really was. And near the top, half swallowed by branches, something that might be a face was looking straight back at the camera.
She pointed out that there was a little bit of movement, kind of on the bottom left area of this black shape. And I looked closely and I zoomed in even further, and the footage was kind of blurry, but she was right. It looked like something was kind of hanging and swinging back and forth a little bit towards the bottom and the left-hand side of whatever it was I saw.
The rock, the footprint, and the broken trees were unsettling enough, but that hidden figure stayed with him long after the trip ended. So what was actually watching him from that tree line? Washington's Hoh Rainforest in Olympic National Park is known for its towering trees, thick moss, and lush green landscape. The quiet trails and dense vegetation make it one of the most recognizable forests in the Pacific Northwest. During what was supposed to be a peaceful hike, a visitor recorded a short video while following her daughter along the trail. After reviewing the footage, some viewers noticed what appears to be a dark figure standing deeper in the forest. The video begins with the camera moving along a quiet trail lined with large ferns and towering trees covered in moss. The person filming follows the path at a relaxed pace, capturing the peaceful surroundings as sunlight filters through the forest canopy. As the camera turns toward a brighter opening in the woods, a tall, dark figure can be seen standing among the distant trees. The figure appears to remain still and is partially hidden by branches and thick vegetation, making it difficult to identify exactly what is being seen. Because the sighting lasts only a few moments, viewers have reached different conclusions about what the footage actually shows. In the final moments of the recording, the camera continues moving along the trail and briefly passes behind a large moss-covered tree. For a split second, the dark figure can still be seen in the background before it is completely hidden from view as the path curves away. The clip ends without another clear look at the subject. Since it was shared online, the short video has become another source of debate among people interested in unexplained sightings. Some believe the figure is something unusual hidden among the trees, while others think there may be a simpler explanation. Because the footage is brief and distant, the question of what was standing in the rainforest remains unanswered. For decades, the forested hills around Mission, British Columbia have been linked to reports of something that many believe shouldn't exist. Locals, hikers, and outdoor enthusiasts have shared accounts of unusual sightings in the area, making it one of Canada's best-known locations for Bigfoot discussions. In 2013, an anonymous tourist shared a short video that was reportedly recorded while exploring these remote hills. According to the person who uploaded it, they had no idea anything unusual had been captured until they reviewed the footage later. The video begins with a handheld camera pointed toward a steep hillside covered in thick trees. The shot is slightly shaky, and the only sounds are distant birds and the eerie silence of the surrounding forest. At first, everything appears completely ordinary as the camera slowly scans the hillside, revealing nothing that seems out of place. Then, as the person filming zooms in toward an open section near the top of the ridge, a large, dark figure suddenly becomes visible. The figure appears to be walking across the slope on two legs, moving with a slow, steady, and deliberate pace. Because of the distance and the video quality, it is difficult to identify exactly what it is, but its upright movement is what has fueled years of debate among viewers. During the final part of the clip, the figure keeps moving across the hillside before reaching the tree line, where it gradually disappears from view behind the dense forest. The camera remains fixed on the area for several more moments, almost as if the person filming is waiting for it to appear again. But it never does. That ending has led many people to replay the footage, searching for any detail that might explain what crossed the ridge. Although the video is short and does not provide a clear answer, it continues to be discussed by people interested in Bigfoot reports. Some believe it shows an unknown creature, while others think there could be a more ordinary explanation. After years of debate, however, no explanation has been universally accepted, leaving the footage from Mission as one of the most enduring and mysterious Bigfoot clips discussed by enthusiasts today. Nearly a year ago, a group of female Sasquatch researchers entered the remote forests of Washington for an overnight investigation unlike any they had experienced before. Their goal was to create a relaxed and open environment where researchers could focus on documenting possible Sasquatch activity without distractions. Bringing together experienced investigators from Washington and Oregon, they traveled to a secluded location near Hoodport, deep within the wilderness. But as the investigation unfolded, the peaceful atmosphere began to change. Strange sounds, unusual activity, and unexplained moments started emerging from the surrounding forest, turning what began as a simple research trip into a night filled with mystery. What they encountered there would leave them searching for answers long after they returned home.
Welcome to Salish Sasquatch, where we share evidence as well as encounters. Almost a year ago, my friend Missy and I began planning a women's only camp out in Washington State. The reason we wanted to have just women is we wanted to create an atmosphere that was less threatening, a little bit more feminine, and just really chill vibes. So we gathered some of the best female researchers from the state, including one from Oregon, and we headed up to our friend Leslie King's Airbnb up on Down Mountain, which is in Hoodsport, Washington.
Almost immediately after arriving at the remote location, the investigation took an unexpected turn. While documenting their experience for Salish Sasquatch, two researchers heard a strange vocal coming from the woods below, a sound that seemed part bark and part howl. The unusual call echoed through the forest, stopping them in their tracks as they realized they had both heard the same unexplained sound. With no clear answer to what had come from the darkness, the mystery surrounding the area had already begun from the very first moments.
As soon as we got there, a few women heard an interesting vocal.
So Jamie and I were walking over to our cabin, or to my cabin, to put my stuff away, and it's overlooking the ravine. And we were both walking, but we heard something coming from there that sounded kind of barky, howly like, and then then there was another noise after, but since we were kind of walking, we didn't really, I don't know, we just both heard it, and we can't explain what it was.
It stopped us in our tracks.
It
though.
stopped
We
us.
stopped and we were like,
We both looked at each other like, did you hear that?
The first night was pretty quiet. There was some interesting sounds, but nothing that you'd want to write home about. Definitely nothing that you'd want to make videos about.
Their final night in the forest became the turning point of the entire investigation. Around 8:15 p.m., a powerful tree fall shattered the calm and pushed them to begin recording the surrounding area. What followed was a series of unexplained moments captured both outside and inside the cabin, evidence that would later draw the attention of respected Bigfoot researchers Doug Hychek and David Ellis. As the night continued, strange activity unfolded around the property, creating a timeline filled with unusual sounds, mysterious movements, and events that left everyone searching for a possible explanation behind what had happened deep in the forest.
The next night was our last night there. The night actually started with the tree fall around 8:15 p.m., and that's when we deployed audio. We heard a few interesting things, but again, nothing to write home about. That night turned out to be very interesting. I'm going to go through the whole timeline with you. Throughout the video, you're going to see a few videos that the girls captured, including one from inside the cabin where this incident took place. And then you will hear from Doug Hychek and David Ellis. Both of these people are very credible men in the Bigfoot community and very well respected.
Determined to capture whatever might be moving through the area, they surrounded the property with audio recorders. Each device was carefully placed near locations linked to previous unexplained activity. The ravine where strange sounds had been heard, the cabin area where unusual noises were reported, and another nearby location where mysterious vocals had been detected. With the equipment set up, they moved deeper into the investigation, exploring the area and searching for answers hidden within the forest. Every recorder became another silent witness waiting for something to happen.
So we're going to go down here. Jamie, Janice, and I are going to we're going to surround the property with our audio recorders. I'm going to put one down here because this is the ravine where we hear a lot of stuff take place. We've heard a few things back over here by Jamie's cabin, which is where we're going to put one. And then we're going to put one across the street where Leslie has heard vocals.
The moment they heard movement outside the cabin, everything changed. Something was circling the area, tapping on the walls, throwing small rocks, and leaving behind heavy footsteps in the darkness. With the new moon creating near total blackness, they had no way to see what was out there. Then, as they listened closely, another sound came from the forest, turning a strange night into a truly unsettling encounter.
That something was walking around the cabin, tapping on the cabin, and throwing pebbles at the cabin. And then Lydia heard footsteps. This is where we were. We're way over here. And it was a new moon yesterday. It was pitch black.
The events surrounding the cabin created a series of disturbing patterns that immediately caught the attention of those investigating the encounter. Unexplained tapping, rocks striking the structure, heavy footsteps circling the area, and deep breathing sounds unfolded one after another, matching behaviors often described in reported Sasquatch encounters. As the activity intensified, each new sound added another piece to the mystery developing around the property. With the darkness hiding whatever was moving nearby, those involved were left facing a question they could not answer. What had been watching, approaching, and moving through the forest that night? Even before the night was over, the team realized the forest seemed to be responding to their presence.
That sums up our trip at Down Mountain this weekend. Missy and my goal was to come to a place with only women, bring a couple kids, and try to just lure them that way in a non-threatening way.
What do you think was really out there in the darkness that night? A strange coincidence, an unknown animal, or something far more mysterious? Share your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching.